this is Simone. This is SGCF Road. So this video is going to be a 2-inch lift install, 4-inch lift install, and a couple of the common questions. First, we're going to handle the common questions. I'm going to give some short answers. I can make a detailed video about it, about suspension setup, things like that, if anybody's interested. But the short answers is this. Do I need to do any modifications outside of the lift? You will have to move the fender liner around. You might have to trim your front bumper, depending on the tire size you're going with. It's just the way it's set up. You have certain angles of the caster angle in the front, the way the wheel goes forward as it lifts. So the vehicle's, and there is no way of taking that away, because if you take that caster away, then you'll have issues with vehicle handling and stability in the road. And you will, it's set up for the stock size tire, with clearance for the stock size tire. You can make a 31, maybe 32 fit without any sort of adjustment of anything. That said, it was manufactured to this T of this within the stock spec, so there is no way around that. With a 4-inch lift, the exhaust modification, it needs lowered because the rear subframe got lowered. And it's lowered roughly about the fuel tank, and back, and have to get adjusted, angled, whatever you want to angle it. The way I did it on mine was, I took the pipes, cut them at the gas tank, lowered them like this, cut them again, and lift them back up underneath the rear diff. So the rear muffler works as a skid plate essentially, but it doesn't hit anything like that, none of the pipes. And that's because we lowered the rear subframe. Next question that I get is about any drivetrain reliability issues like that. So I haven't had any reports of any problems, and I've been doing this for about 4 or 5 years. I haven't had any issues on mine, and the quick answer is because of the CV joint type, which is called the Resepa, that the l322 uses on the inside joint, outside joint, in the front and in the rear. Other manufacturers, they use that tripod style on the inside joints, and those are limited in how much angle and motion they can handle. But they still use the Resepa on the outside, because Resepa is basically one of those 6-ball spheres, like 6 to 8, sometimes 10. The newer ones got more, but they can handle turning and going up and down at the same time. It can handle more stress, more angle than other type of joints. That's what they're used always at the steering knuckle area because of that. While the tripods, they only can handle limited type of angle. They can't handle too much, so they use them on the inside, because the inside of the vehicle mainly sees a little bit side to side, but mainly sees up and down. So it's cheaper joint. So the Range Rover Sports L3, LR3, LR4, things like that, they'll all use the tripods on the inside because they're cheaper to manufacture. But that's how we can get away with with a 4-inch lift without doing full subframe spaces and things like that all around. For the other question about the how it all gets done, basically it's a combination of a 2-inch and a 4-inch lift. When you do the 4-inch lift, it's a 4-inch lift, but it uses parts of the 2-inch lift and extra parts to make it a 4-inch lift. That's why you can upgrade to it from a 2-inch to a 4-inch now. But you always lose 2 inches of travel in the front, and the reason for that is just to be safe, so we don't overstress the front axles and front CVs. So they're known, have zero problems at a 2-inch lift point. They can handle it. There is no extra stress. They can handle actually more than 2-inch lift. With that said, they go to their limit at that point. Because I've had them at a full extension of 4-inch lift, and there is some rubbing issues between the axle and the strut because the way it's set up, and also they were at their limit on angle. So because of that, I cut that travel down. So you still have a 4-inch lift, but you just don't extend all the way down like you would normally, and that's the reason for that. So it's safer on the axle, safer on the components. You don't have to worry about any extra things. I hope this answers some of the questions, and if you like, I can make a detailed video on the l322 suspension setup and the axles and drivetrain, how it's all set up on it. But for now, let's get into the installation. So first we'll go to the 2-inch lift, and then we'll go over the 4-inch lift. One thing to keep in mind, the 4-inch lift video part will not have predecessor parts of the 2-inch lift, because they'll be redundant, showing the same thing. So you'll have to watch the whole thing and combine it together for the 4-inch. For the 2-inch part, it'll go first. So if that's all you're interested in, because that's what you're doing, you can hop off the video once that's done with. That said, before you do that, hit like and subscribe, promote the channel, and thank you for watching. Alright, so here we get into a 2-inch lift. This is installation directions. So here we are in front of the vehicle. This one had a coil conversion, but that's not really relevant. Some is a little bit apart. So for the 2-inch lift, so you're going to take out the front strut out and, you know, unhook the wires here, disconnect your sway bar link. I do recommend disconnecting the sway bar link, not sway bar link, I'm sorry, the right head sensor, just so we don't damage it. It's right here out the way for right now. And then we're going to take these 2 bolts out right here, and the 3 nuts up top, and the electric connector if you have one. Now this strut is built in the bottom here. Here we'll go on. Alright, so it's going to be the 2-inch and a 4-inch same application, the top spacer mount. So that slides just like that on. A little bit harder to do with one hand, but you get the idea. It slides right over here. We'll get it on here. Oh, there it is. Then the original hardware from your strut, because it might be different, thread goes onto here, tighten all around, and then the new hardware goes up top with the new spacers. Last step before the strut goes in, we're going to shave this ear off carefully, just so we have better clearance between the axle and the strut when it's at full extension, and mainly when you're like lock to lock at the full extension of the wheel. And now that we have the strut back inside, we're going to put the new camber adjustment bolt back up in here. So this guy, these 2 bolts here for the strut to the knuckle, we were using the bottom one, we're now reusing the top one. That's where the camber bolt's going to come in. Here they are. So the way you want to put them in is you want to put this tab towards the inside, because we will need to be adding, it's going to look like that, because we are going to add more negative camber, because when you lift it, it loses negative camber, a little stumble there, and means you can be adding it, and that's going to be the issue we're going to be doing. And that will also help us have better tire wear and better stability. There we go, we're all done with the front end. We got the upper spacer in, so that struts back on side. We got the camber bolt back in, so we're done with that. We can put the wheels back on and then, you know, move on to the rear. Alright, so here we are at the back. We're going to start doing the rear. Light always helps. So we're going to take the shock out. This guy, they're going to pull that out, put the spacer on top of that, and then we're also going to have to get the spring out. This one has the coil conversion, so you would need to have a coil compressor to get it out, and it's a lot more fun versus the air. You let the air pressure out and it collapses pretty well, nice and easy. And our new spacer is going to go, oh, light's falling down here. It's going to go right down here in the bottom. So we'll set this up here in a second. I'm going to get these parts out and we'll go from there. Alright, so here we are at the back. We got the spring out, the shocks out. So the new spacer is going to go on, and the spacer does come with a dowel pin to lock this in so it lines up, and so you can line up your airbag correctly. On the coil spring, it doesn't matter because it's a coil spring. We don't have nothing to line up. So the spacer, as you can see, we have the hole drilled for the dowel pin that would thread into it, and we have the countersink for the snout right here, so it sits in perfect. So one thing to note, if you have coil springs, you will need a longer bolt, about inch and a half, that holds this cup in place. I do not supply that, mainly because there's different manufacturers will use different thread. It will be too much of a hassle to me figure out who using what thread. You'll have to find that on your own. So here's the shock. So we're gonna take, let me set this down here, the seal off that sits here that keeps the water, moisture, things like that from inside of the cabin. So you can see how nice and clean it is right in here, off. And we're gonna put this one on top of our strut. Helps with a little bit of noise and a little bit of sealing. So if you'd like to, you can put a little bit of RTV here across just to help it seal better, just so it still stays this way, or not, but regardless, that's what we're gonna do. And then, you know, this guy is gonna go just like that, and back up and then goes. All right. So that is right there, that's it for the 2-inch lift. And, you know, put the wheel back on and get the car aligned, and you'll be good to go. Now let's do the 4-inch. All right, so we got the stop spacer on the epoxy drying right now. So this car had a coil conversion, but concept's the same as you've seen in the other videos. So this is our new spacer. It's gonna bolt right up inside of here. There we go. That's the lower strut spacer. Is gonna go up and bolt up right up to here, all through the same hole, factory like. As you see, it's all back on, slides on, that locks in, put a bolt and nut through there, assemble it back together. For the air suspension, you will be taking those little seal rings that are off, and you're going to put them in exactly the same order back on over top of this right here. Alright, so here I have the tie rod. This is for the 4-inch lift. So we have the miscellaneous parts that come with it. This is the guy, and that has a fitting for us to grease it, as it is greasable and fully rebuildable. You'll have your baggie, save this tag that has the part number, so you can rebuild them as you need to whenever they wear out. This is everything you get in here. Here you got the needed hardware, needed spacers, the bolts, and all the parts that go with it. So the way that goes together, I took this one off. This is for the on-body spacer application. This is to bolt it up to the knuckle. So for one, first we gotta build this guy. So we have this bushing, we have the ball end. The ball end needs to go up inside of the bushing, gets pushed through. We have the washer, one on this end of the bushing, one on the other end of the bushing. That gets sandwiched up inside of there. So if you feel with your finger, you would see there's a ridge, and there's also a ridge for a snap ring to go in. So let's drop in like that. Then we have the bushing. I'm not gonna push it in because I gotta build this first. And then this guy, then the next washer, and then you put in the snap ring. And don't forget to put your grease fittings. And when you mount them up, I would recommend them go up this way. This way the circuit fitting is towards you, so it's easily accessible to grease. So pay attention to that. And like I said, it's gonna replace the stock one that's a bottom mount to a top mount to compensate for the knuckles being lower with the 4-inch lift, so we don't have the bump steer. And that taper is going to go up inside of here. It's going to take up the taper of a stock tie rod, so we'll see that in a second. So here's the joint. We push that right through. Like I said, I'm going to grease it up a little bit inside and the outside of the ball itself, so it's easier to go in. So now we'll push it in here, put the snap ring, and then we'll kind of push it down so we can get the actual snap ring on. Sorry, that meant the washer. Get the washer over top. So this is actually pretty tight to go in, especially with the ball end, as you can see. So you will have to mess with it. So it's meant to be tight, because it is a tie rod, so you do want that to be tight inside of there. As you can see, here we're gonna put this washer, it's pretty tight space, and I had to tap that in pretty hard, and we put the washer in. It's a little bit of one-handed operation here, holding the phone. As you can tell, it's still super tight, so you're gonna have to set up like a press and press this washer down, squeeze the bushing a bit so we can get the snap ring in. So here you have the old tie rod out. Here's the new one. We got that further on, and here we got the spacers and the bolt and the nut. So this spacer shaft, this is gonna go right up here up top. This one right here is the bottom one that has the taper. That goes right here in the bottom to take up the taper with the original tie rod right there. See how it fits? You can see how it fits right in, and we'll jam up inside of there. This is the top, and that goes up top. So let's put this then the tie rod's on top of here. Oh, there we go. Tie rod's on top of there, and then the bolt goes through and not at the bottom. So it's gonna look a little bit something like this, or exactly like that. So you're gonna tighten this guy right down, and we'll be good to go. The 4-inch lift here, I'm gonna drop the arms down, thrust arm and the control arm. I already have the welder kind of hooked up, and the new brackets, they go in just like this. Clean up the area. One's going to be going on right here. It gets welded up right up into this. I'll show it to you once it's tacked on. This one's already tacked in place. Here we are on the other side of the vehicle. So the brackets, they just line right up and they're weld on. So right here, as you can see, it's all kind of only fits one way, just like that. We'll weld this guy on. Here we have the control bracket. Same thing, just clean all the surface up, tack it in place, make sure it fits good. Make any sort of adjustments you need to, and weld it in place. Here we are on the other side of the vehicle. The brackets already welded, and I sprayed some primer paint on there, high temp for now, and then we'll a couple coats to coat up so it doesn't rust as bad or as fast. And you can see they're fully attached. The brackets are welded. We got some paint thrown on them. So we're gonna move on to the next. Alright, so here we are at the rear again. So we're gonna have the subframe lowered. We're gonna put in the spacer for the subframe. So you can see there's a dowel pin right there. We got the same thing going on here. We have dowel pin and dowel pin to lock right in. Then we got our longer bolt with a lock washer to use that in. So we're gonna throw this guy in, front and the back, and then we'll do the drive shaft next. Alright, so we have the exhaust shield off, the exhaust off. You can see the front section hanging down. And there's the carrier bearing, and that is the U-joint.
As you can see, the U-joint has a bit of an angle on it, and that's what we need to take out, as it is only one U-joint, so there's not a second one to cancel it out. So our spacer thread's gonna go right up inside of here where the carry bearing bolts up, right in there. Here's these guys, and we're gonna make sure that we set the U-joint at the 0 angle, so this bar is exactly level with this bar on the drive shaft. One thing you will have to do, see these little nubs here, we will have to knock them down some, as they will be in the way of us being able to put in the new nuts in to tighten this guy up. Alright, so let's drop this down, let's knock the nuts off. One tip that I do have when cutting them down, thread this nut back on, just so you have threads to basically you can use the nut to clean the threads back up when you take it off. So let's get to it. So there we go, bolted up the new spacers, drop the carry bearing down, the drive shaft line is in line again. You put it all back together, test drive to make sure we have no shakes, and we're good to go. Last part, for the 4-inch lift, you also get a set of lift rods. Since the vehicle has a custom lift on it and the control arms are relocated, we do gotta provide you with the proper lift rod so your system operates correctly.
Alright guys, if you stuck through the whole thing, thank you for watching. And like and subscribe, and I hope you enjoyed the content.